Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiffany James, and I am with the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for coming to the Georgian Bluffs Municipal All Candidates meeting. The Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the people of the three fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi, and further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as their traditional keepers of this land. I am pleased to introduce our moderator for this evening, JC Coots from Bayshore Broadcasting. JC will quickly review the format for the evening and the rules of engagement. Everyone, please welcome JC.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight, and thank you for our candidates for being here as well that are going to be running for municipal council here in Georgian Bluffs. A few things to know about tonight. We do welcome audience questions. So, audience members, if you have any questions that you would like to ask of our mayoral or council candidates, the best thing to do would be to put up your hand now. We have volunteers who have pen and paper. They will make their way over to you so that you can write down your question and then submit it. Do try to write as legibly as possible so we can read it, and try to keep as much profanity out as possible. Once I hit the third F-bomb, I'm probably not going to read the rest of it. For our candidates up here tonight, each of them will introduce themselves by making a 90-second opening statement. When they answer questions tonight, they will have 60 seconds. They'll also have 60 seconds for rebuttals, and at the end of it, they will have 90 seconds for a closing statement. Right in the middle, we have our three mayoral candidates. They are flanked on their sides by our council candidates. Over in front of them, in this table right here, we have some representatives from the Chamber of Commerce that are going to help us out with timing their responses. Marg, you might notice, has a stop sign there. Stop is on the one side. I think you know what that means. 30 seconds on the other side is kind of a heads up that you've got 30 seconds left in your response. Natalie is next to her. She will have a timer that will go off to when you hit your limit as well. Otherwise, please be respectful of each other. Owen Sound Council were able to do it the other night. They've set the bar high, which isn't the usual, but just kidding, little council humor there. But do keep it respectful tonight, and we'll have a great debate. If we are all ready to go, we are going to start with opening statements. One councillor candidate who is here tonight but can only stay long enough to make an opening statement is Isaac Scholday. So Isaac, you have 90 seconds.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Is this working? Great. Hi, I'm Isaac Scholday. I just want to start off tonight by saying I'm an emerge nurse. I work out of Wyerton Hospital. I'm scheduled for a night shift tonight. It sucks, but that's the current state of our healthcare system. We're understaffed and overwhelmed. It's not possible to get a shift covered. However, a coworker, Erica, was able to cover the start of my meeting tonight, so I have about 10-15 minutes here, and then I'm going to jet out. Sorry about that, but this is the way. So thank you to everyone tonight who organized the event. I'd like to thank you for accommodating my sort of modified participation in tonight's event. I also would like to state that I'll be at the Shell Lake meeting on October 12th for any of you who would be there, and I'd be happy to take more questions from you and have more time there to talk about my platform and what I'm planning to bring to the Township of Georgian Bluffs. A little bit about myself. I'm a 6th generation beef cattle farmer living on the same land as my ancestors. I was raised with the idea that we have to care for our land, we have to protect and nurture and value our natural resources. My grandfather has always said that if we take care of the land, it'll take care of us. Challenges that this new council will face in the next 4 years are unprecedented. Climate change, the development of sustainable housing, creating opportunity for reasonable development, increasing communication with other municipalities, and maintaining quality employment for the people of Georgian Bluffs. We have many challenges that are going to be upcoming, such as managing managing the logistical challenges from Airbnbs to the biodigester. Georgian Bluffs, the future.
And that
of this
is
council.
time.
Thank you. Anyways, if you want to ask me more questions, I'll be at Shell Lake on October 12th. So please come and ask me some questions. I'm really easygoing. If you want to shoot me an email, please do so. My phone has been waterlogged, so like total worst case scenario, but shoot me an email. You're not going to be able to call me or text me. So thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Isaac. There is one more candidate for council who is not here tonight, and that is Rick Winters. I'll read his statement when we get to the end, but we'll stick to the format the rest of the way through. We're going to start actually with the mayoral candidates giving their opening statements, and we will start with Dwight Burley.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm a leader with plenty of experience, knowledge, ambition to continue as your mayor. I will make sure council has the necessary training in order to do the job we are elected to do. Work with our CEO to build a trust and respect between council and staff to form a team to move Georgian Bluffs forward into the future. Work with our neighbors and have constructive conversations how to build our municipalities. Finalize our action on the bar adjuster. Implement our trail rec master plan. Finalize our organizational review early in the term. Work with our climate action committee at both upper and lower tiers to make sure our plans are achievable. Continue updating our official plan. Work with our amazing Innertownship Fire Department on a new fire master plan. And I have many other items I would like to put out in my platform, but my time is close. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dwight Burley. Next mayoral candidate to speak is Sue Carlton.
I am Sue Carlton. I have served on Georgian Bluffs Council for the past 8 years, 4 of those as deputy mayor and as a member of Grey County Council. As mayor, I promise to strive for open communication between all council members, staff, and you, our ratepayers. It is important that each of us work together to help keep everyone informed. I promise to share any information received with staff and all of council so that we don't waste staff's time with 7 different emails or phone calls. As a councillor and deputy mayor, I have served on the Biodigester, Innertownship Fire Department, and Grey Sauble Conservation Committees, and the Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Committee. As a member of County Council, I have served on Economic Development, Tourism, Agriculture Advisory, and am chair of the Climate Action Task Force. Some of the issues facing the new council are updating the timelines on the strategic plan, updating our official plan, and be sure it includes the regulations needed for short-term accommodations so that residents and visitors alike can enjoy their time here. Our Recreation and Trails Master Plan needs to be implemented and expanded upon. We need to continue to put money into reserves to support updating all of our infrastructure. We need to work with our neighbors and go into our discussions with a win-win goal in mind for everyone. These are only some of the issues that need to be considered by the incoming council. I am asking for your vote to make me the next mayor of Georgian Bluffs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue Carlton. And our final mayoral candidate is Scott Cato.
Thank you all for coming out here tonight and taking the interest in the future of Georgian Bluffs. The question, Scott Cato, why are you running for mayor? I'll come back to that. I have the interest, the vision, and the ability needed for change and strong leadership in Georgian Bluffs. There are a number of important issues in front of us: the failed biodigester, the inability to not only acquire and retain staff, bring back a simplified system to approvals, attendance in person at meetings. These are just a few of the important decisions that have real impact on the real people in Georgian Bluffs. Just last week at the meeting in Kemble, it was made very clear that other than the sale of the airport, not much has happened in the last 4 years. Council has to be engaged and knowledgeable when it comes to the financial operation. We need more oversight by council for responsible fiscal management. We can save money, and we have the responsibility of the taxpayer to do so. We can be more efficient. Shared services will benefit us all. If anyone's seen the Owen Sound candidates meeting last week, it was made very clear. Communication is non-existent and broken, and annexation and amalgamation is the path they want to take, not a road I want to go down. So the question, why do you want to be mayor? We need more accountability, council committed to their duties. This requires not only strong leadership, but common sense and a commitment to Georgian Bluffs. I've lived here for 35 years with my family, Jen, and my 3 kids, and that's why I'm running for mayor. We need new leadership, and we need it now. So thank you, and please, on October 24th, mark Cato for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And we'll meet the rest of our council candidates now. We'll start at the very far end of the table. Ryan Thompson, you are up first.
Thanks very much. My name is Ryan Thompson. I'd like to thank you for taking this chance to get to know me. I grew up in the Wyerton area and built my current home in Georgian Bluffs following graduation from university in 1996. I'm very humbled and honored to have been a councillor here in the last 18 years. Despite the good work that our previous councils have done, I'd like to continue that work, and I think in the next term we're going to need to focus on some of the hard services that people rely on. Continual looking for efficiencies in hard services, good roads, garbage, waste diversion. I think a key component this year in this term would be to look at our biodigester. Like our airport, it was a great environmental impact, but it's too expensive for a small urban or a small rural municipality for us like us to shoulder by ourselves. I think that in our planning over the next term, we need to use a climate lens. Our climate change is upon us, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we consider the climate when we make any decision. I want to thank you, and in closing, I'm asking for your vote, and I take this request very seriously. Residents deserve good governance and transparent leadership from council members. I rely upon collaboration with others and consideration of all perspectives in every matter that comes before council. I believe that the input of every ratepayer in Georgian Bluffs is valuable, and I strive to be approachable regarding every matter. I believe that every ratepayer deserves this commitment. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, Ryan. And next up is Colin Correa.
Hello, my name is Colin Correa, and I'm running for councillor in Georgian Bluffs Township. Currently, I'm a woodworking teacher at St. Mary's High School in Owen Sound. In other words, if any of you have received a wooden toolbox as a gift in the last 4 years from one of our students, you can thank me after the meeting. I'm also a volunteer firefighter in the community, which I was happy to get onto in April of 2021. There is a theme to teaching in the fire service. All aspects result in me giving me the opportunity to enrich the lives of those I interact with. This passion started when I was 13 years old. 3 friends and I wrote a letter to the city councillor that we needed a skateboard park. In the letter, we mentioned that we would get kicked out of parking lots, we would get robbed by neighborhood bullies, and we just wanted a place to skateboard that we didn't have to worry about getting in trouble. We were thrilled when our parents received a phone call inviting us to meetings where my friends, Mel Lassman and I would discuss the possibility of a skateboard park. In 2001, it was built, and I had this feeling of doing something for the common good. And to this day, the park is enjoyed by many people of the Willowdale community. This feeling of collaborating with multiple people in a municipal government setting was absolutely thrilling and rewarding, and I was enriching the lives of other skateboarders. Reflecting on it now, the people who probably used it last weekend weren't even born when we worked to have this built. Think about that. I can be a part of something to enrich the lives of people who don't exist yet. Here I am, 24 years later, telling you I'm going to do my best for something great, this community. Vote Colin Correa for councillor. Thank you.
And next up for council is Kathy Coburn-Moore.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kathy Moore-Coburn, and I'm running for re-election. I've been honored to serve on council and several committees this past term on your behalf. I'm a retired registered nurse with a 30-year career in public health, mental health and addictions, and a professor of nursing. I have lived in Grey County all my life and in Georgian Bluffs for 17 years. If re-elected, I commit to act on several important issues. Our Recreation and Trails Master Plan is complete and needs to be implemented. All residents have the right to social and recreational activities regardless of age or ability. We need a more proactive approach to land development using the results of our master servicing study. Our biodigester continues to be significantly underutilized, yet costly to operate. We should establish different ownership of this facility or temporarily decommission it. Many permanent residents have expressed concerns about short-term rentals. Effective decisions must be made early on next term. You deserve a council that listens to its residents and sets policy based on data or established best practice. If re-elected, I will remain committed to responsible stewardship, advocacy, and policy making. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting, and thank you all for coming this evening.
Thank you, Kathy. And we'll skip over the mayoral candidates in the middle, come back over to the rest of the council candidates, and Christopher Azevedo is up next.
Hi, my name is Christopher Azevedo, and I'd like to ask for your vote for councillor and represent you for the next 4 years. This request is one I don't make lightly, and if you give me this opportunity, I will show you what it means to properly represent you, the residents and ratepayers of Georgian Bluffs, and the beautiful communities that we live in. I am married to my lovely wife, Christina, and we have 4 amazing children who are here with me tonight. Christina has given me her full support in this commitment that I am making to you. My wife and I own a small business in Georgian Bluffs that has been in our family for over 50 years. I have an engineering and technical education, and I have had the privilege to work the last 20 years both in the private and public sectors. There are many major issues affecting the residents of Georgian Bluffs, such as our taxes, water, Airbnbs, and our impact on the environment, to name a few. We need a council that is diverse and brings feedback from the community to the table, but one that is open-minded to others' ideas and suggestions. We need someone who is cooperative and constructive and will do what's in the best interest of you, always. I pride myself on being that person and on making evidence-based decisions through consultation and collaboration with others. I commit to work hard and put in the time required no matter what. I bring a fresh perspective and new and creative ideas to the table, but more importantly, an open mind. I commit that I will always be accessible to you and respond to your inquiries, concerns, and issues. Thank you for your time, and thank you to the Owen Sound and District Chamber of Commerce for providing me with this opportunity to speak to all of you.
Thank you, Christopher. Next up is Tobin Day.
Hello, my name is Tobin Day, and I mostly grew up around here. Some of you might remember my father's work with Parks Canada that brought us to the area originally. I've been teaching here for over 15 years now, and I've worked in all the schools in Blue Water that our students in Georgian Bluffs attend. I'm heavily involved in the community as well. I've been a founding member of the Bruce Peninsula Multi-Sport Race, which now passes through Georgian Bluffs, and I was one of 4 people to help put A.G. Jack the crane at the Oxenden intersection through the Oxenden Indigenous Art Project. When I decided to run for council, I started thinking about 3 major concepts. I started thinking about the number of doctors we have in our region and how, while doctors and healthcare professionals are a provincial matter, if we work collaboratively with other levels of government, then that serves our constituents the best. I've also thought a lot about farmland and farmers. We are losing 319 acres of farmland per day in Ontario, and I've heard from my students and neighbors that farming is a particularly hard way to make a living. We need to support our farmers and make sure our roads and infrastructure is suited for their needs. Finally, climate change has been something I've been thinking about for a long time. We need collaborative, fiscally responsible solutions that don't put too much pressure on any one sector. Thank you so much for being here this evening and taking part in the democracy in Georgian Bluffs. Thank you to the organizers, and I look forward to the rest of the evening's conversation.
Thank you, Tobin. Next up is Mike Smith.
Thank you for coming, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mike Smith. I was born and raised on the peninsula. I live in Oxenden currently with my 2 daughters, aged 7 and 11. I've been a member of the Bruce Peninsula Sportsmen's Association for 37 years. I'm currently the assistant hatchery manager. We stock 100 to 150,000 rainbow trout and 50,000 brown trout in Colpoys Bay on a yearly basis. Being in real estate, it's given me a unique perspective of meeting new people throughout Georgian Bluffs. I also get to hear what's important to them. I also get to meet new people coming to the area and know what's important to them too. Part of the platform I'm running on is our short-term rental problem. Other municipalities have dealt with this. We have not. It's something that needs to be dealt with sooner rather than later. The biodigester is a big topic that needs to be dealt with as well. It's not working. We need to move on. Protecting farmland and green space is something that's very, very important to me. Once we lose that, we cannot get it back. So that's something we need to protect. I'm a firm believer in fiscal responsibility. As a council, we need to take a hard look at our spending habits, see where there is waste, and move those to areas that it can be better utilized. If elected, I can promise you this one thing: I will always listen to you, and I will always keep an open mind. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Mike Smith. Our next candidate is not here tonight. That is Rick Winters. Rick sent a statement to be read. Rick is currently traveling to Northern Ontario for his son's wedding. So this is the statement from Rick Winters. Good evening, my name is Rick Winters, and I am running for councillor in this election. I have lived in the township of Georgian Bluffs since 1999 with my wife, where we raised our 2 grown children, who now represent their communities as a police officer and a nurse. I have a background in civil engineering and have held positions of sewage system inspector, construction estimator, director of operations, CAO, and branch manager. These positions, along with my education, have given me the experience to truly understand the township's geography and attributes, as well as the needs and issues. I am running for councillor as I have the ability and mindset to collaborate with fellow council members and staff while representing the constituents of Georgian Bluffs with an open-minded, forward-thinking approach when considering the matters and decisions affecting the township. There will be many important issues presented to the new council by ratepayers, residents, stakeholders, and staff that will need to be addressed. Some of these issues will include the current state of the biodigester and the business viability of it, short-term rental accommodation, licensing, meeting the objectives of the approved strategic plan, implementing the recommendations contained within the Recreation and Trails Master Plan, future land development, service levels, water system sustainability, and climate action, to name a few. As councillor, my priorities will also include ensuring the lines of communication are open between neighboring municipalities to promote discussions regarding services and the contractual sharing of such where possible to provide the best value for all. Make certain the budgets offer value and that efficiencies are realized where possible to ensure rate increases are justified and within reason, and pledge that action items are reviewed so the council direction is not lost and that matters are resolved until resolution. As a strategically minded, results-oriented individual that believes in honest, transparent communication and accountability, I will consider issues fairly and strive to make informed decisions. Is that stopped? Yes, it is. All right, Rick got stopped. He only had 2 sentences to go. Too bad. All right, so that is Rick Winter's statement, not me. I am not running for council, but Rick is, so consider him along with these other lovely people. All right, now we are going to move on to the question and answer portion of the evening. We are going to alternate between questions for the mayoral candidates and for the council candidates. Every candidate, mayoral, will get to answer their questions, and all council candidates will get to answer questions for them. We're going to start with the mayoral candidates. Again, you have 60 seconds to respond to these questions. I'll call you in the order that you spoke this evening, and if a rebuttal is needed, you will have 60 seconds for that. First question for our 3 mayor candidates. As you know, the township of Georgian Bluffs is made up of a number of smaller constituent communities, but does not have a central business district. Do you support initial planning to examine alternative locations and preliminary associated costs to fill this void? 60 seconds each. We will start with Dwight Burley.
Yes, I do. One thing I think our new council, when we're sworn in, should do, we should automatically join the Chamber of Commerce. I can't understand why we aren't a member when a lot of our businesses throughout our municipality are members at this time. So yes, I would support any way we can to create our business.
Okay, quick answer from Dwight. Thank you, Dwight. And before we move on too, I did get a request. Some folks in the back are having trouble seeing you people, so if you do want to stand, you are more than welcome to. Sue, it should be noted, unfortunately just had knee surgery and won't be able to stand. So if you do want to come and see what Sue looks like later on, I'm sure she'll post for photos and all that with you. But Sue, you have 60 seconds on the clock.
Are we allowed to ask to have the question reread?
Absolutely. Again, the question for the mayor candidates. As you know, the township of Georgian Bluffs is made up of a number of smaller constituent communities, but does not have a central business district. Do you support initial planning to examine alternative locations and preliminary associated costs to fill that void?
Thank you. I'm not sure that I do, because I think that would take the focus off each of those individual communities, and I think it would look like we were picking favorites going that route. I think the Springmount Business Park is probably our best answer to that, and we should work on expanding services there. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And Scott Caddo.
I'm going to have to agree with Sue on this one. Yeah, I do disagree with that. Georgian Bluffs is actually a unique, very unique area compared to some of the other municipalities around us. We don't have what you would call any sections of large urban areas. We are a community built on smaller communities within ourselves, family-style communities, businesses within themselves. And to try and pick and choose or decide that they should be joined together, we're not like Owen Sound. Meaford, the municipality of Meaford does have something similar in place, but they do have the town of Meaford. So therefore, they have an urban area to work from. We're very unique, and I think that's one of the special things regarding Georgian Bluffs. When it comes to tourism, agricultural, we're so diverse that you can't just put it together and say that we are one group. So no, that's not something I would support. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next, we will go to a question for our council members, all 6 councillors who are present here this evening. We'll have the same question. What steps, if any, should council take to increase access to affordable housing? Again, we'll start in the order that you were introduced tonight, so we'll start down at the very end with Ryan Thompson.
Wow, that's a tough question. So what is our municipal role? I think that we all are aware that there is a housing crisis in our area. There are people, I'm a professional social worker, so I get to see lots of the impact of people without homes. I think there are things that we can do to support housing. We can look at some smaller houses. We can look at when builders are approaching us, we can look at low-income housing or multi-unit housing that'll help increase the number of spaces. Oof, that's fast, okay. I think the catch is not to know the answer, but to know how we get there. And the way that we get there is to rely on our staff and build partnerships. So we need to reach out to the county. The county has a housing department. We need to reach out to them and ask them, what can we do to help solve this problem in our community? That's how problems are solved like that, mental health, housing, all of that. We build on our communities. So the community of communities is where we're going to find that answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next to answer is Colin Correa.
So absolutely, I support trying to find out solutions for affordable housing. Right now, council has already mentioned that in the next official plan that they will include something for affordable housing. It's simply just, we're in these times right now with interest rates going up and inflation on the rise. It's a very difficult time to be able to afford things, and having affordable housing will make it easier for those of us who aren't able to afford housing. Right now, we're working at the school, in fact, to build a tiny home for Habitat for Humanity. So we're partnered with that. You might see that in the newspaper sometime in the future. But I'm all for tiny homes and being able to include them in our bylaws and setting up some form of affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Next is Kathy Moore-Coburn.
Wait, don't start the timing yet. So we have already started to make housing a little more affordable by approving secondary living suites, which is a recent development. And so hopefully some of those secondary units will be used to help folks who are struggling with affording a home. But that only increases our rental units. It doesn't impact the ability to purchase a home, which many folks want to do. So it starts with our our zoning bylaws. The province earlier this year, or late last year, paved the way for us to be able to approve tiny homes, which I support. And we can follow suit in making sure our official plan and zoning bylaws defer to those particular provincial regulations and allow that within our own borders.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up is Christopher Azevedo.
Hi. Yeah, so I definitely support finding a strategy for affordable housing. As I mentioned in my introduction, I have 4 young children. It's important for me for them to be able to afford housing when they get to that stage in life. We've been in this community for 4 generations, and I'd like that to continue. What exactly does that strategy look like right now? We'd have to look at what other municipalities have done and find a strategy, call on the experts to find a solution. I do know that we need to protect our farmland in determining that solution. We can't just build over hundreds and hundreds of acres of fertile land that we need. So is that tiny homes? Is that more dense areas? Perhaps. But we need to look at all that evidence and all that data before we make a informed, responsible decision.
Thank you, Christopher. Next up is Tobin Day.
Hello. I can't profess to have all the solutions to this problem, but I can acknowledge that it is a real problem and one that I see students struggle with. I do know that Grey County has an upcoming plan for affordable housing and that we need the municipality to reflect that plan. As is already happening, making sure bylaws and zoning matches our needs is important. Tiny homes are a possible solution, as is reimagining suburban areas. Co-housing is a solution that lets residents share some common spaces and some common resources, which is being explored in other parts of Grey County and may be of use to Georgian Bluffs as well.
Thank you, Tobin. And Mike Smith.
So this is something I deal with in my business in real estate quite a bit. One of the things we can do is limit our short-term rentals. People using them as business will open up more homes for people to buy. We can lower our square footage requirements. We can change our severance policies to speed up land severances to make room for new homes quicker. And we can go from a single-family residential and some to a multi-family residential and open that up.
Thank you, Mike Smith. Our next question will go to our 3 mayoral candidates. What one measure do you propose to enhance Georgian Bluffs' prosperity on an ongoing, sustainable basis? 60 seconds. We'll start with Dwight Burley.
Sorry, would you repeat the question, please?
The question, what one measure do you propose to enhance Georgian Bluffs' prosperity on an ongoing, sustainable basis?
I would think we need to work together as a group and as a society to try and improve every we can to try and make things work in a way that we can move things forward.
Thank you, Dwight. Next up is Sue Carlton.
I think we need to continue keeping our budgets balanced and keep putting money into reserves to keep our infrastructure built up and keep that tax rate low. We are one of the lowest tax rates in the area, and that in itself will bring more people to the area and will bring prosperity.
Thank you, Sue. And next up is Scott Caddo.
That's an actually pretty tricky question, but if you take Georgian Bluffs in general, the amenities and all the things we have within Georgian Bluffs, the responsible government of and the municipality with something Sue would comment on is good governance at the top throughout into the township here. That's the type of thing that we're going to need to move forward. And the people, the communities, and the amenities that we have within Georgian Bluffs, they'll put the mark on the map. If the council and the council as a whole operate correctly, then the people of Georgian Bluffs, they will be the sustainability for this township to grow and prosper. And that's the number one thing for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. This next question for our 6 council candidates who are present this evening. The question is, what steps, if any, should council take to increase affordable access to public transit in Georgian Bluffs and adjoining communities? Once again, we'll start on the end with Ryan Thompson.
Oh, that's how this is going. Just give me the answers.
Okay, can you read that question again?
What steps, if any, should council take to increase affordable access to public transit in Georgian Bluffs and the adjoining communities?
Thanks very much. So this again is it's a tricky issue in our area. We're spread out in such a rural area, but we do have to acknowledge that not everyone has access to transportation. So there are initiatives that we've done in the past. There has been buses that operate on a routine running from in the north end down to Owen Sound for us. I think we need to continue to look into that again. I think that as a municipality, we can help if we can build a partnership with somebody that's willing to do that, to help people that are maybe in the north end and not having north end or south end that don't have transportation get into the areas that they need to.
Thank you, Ryan. Next up is Colin Correa.
I would love to see public transportation, just because I know a lot of folks who aren't able to get around, and it's very difficult. They may not have a license or what have you. It's been difficult just for our students to get to school. I don't know if anybody has any kids or grandkids and heard that it's like this huge shortage of school bus drivers right now. So sometimes it's just, to me, I think when it comes to public transit, it's like this whole chicken and the egg scenario. Does it not exist because nobody wants it, or does it not exist because like we don't have, if it did exist, because if it did exist, would it, okay, I'm lost on this whole chicken and egg thing, but you guys get what I mean. Does it not exist because it's not here, or is there a demand for it? I don't know. So what I would do on council is have staff form a report, find out how many people are interested in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. And we'll go next to Kathy Moore-Coburn.
Yeah, so I tend to agree with the comments, some of the comments of the previous two speakers. It is a difficult situation, and I can't stand up here and pretend that I have the answer to it. It is important to folks to be able to get places to work and to enjoy the different parts of our area. I do think, though, that we could do a better job of collaborating with our neighbors and those nearby communities that do have transit, working on some deals with them to expand transportation out to parts of our area as well. It is something that we need to go to the communities to see if there's a need, and we can do that easily through surveys and getting public input to help guide us in those decisions.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up is Christopher Azevedo.
Yeah, I think this is an important topic, especially for people who don't have access to public transportation or access to anyone to help them get around. Obviously, there's a need that needs to be filled, but obviously our township is such a big geographical area, we'd have to look at a solution that's feasible to get people from those small communities to the larger shopping areas to be able to do what they need to do. So I think this is something we'd have to look at in a lot more detail to see how we could implement those services cost effectively and meet the needs of the residents who require that service.
Thank you, Christopher. Next
Hello.
is Tobin Day.
It does get harder as time goes on and more people speak. I can echo the need for research to assess our need and for collaboration with municipalities that already have transit, especially our larger neighbor of Owen Sound. And I wonder if we can also support some of the communicate better with our constituents about some of the private services that do exist. The loss of the Grey Bruce Airbus was notable in my family. My mom really struggled to get to Thunder Bay this winter to visit her 102-year-old mother. And we found somebody who does offer affordable private drives down to the airport and back. She'll take your car down as well. So making those services, making them easier to find might be something we can do to help some residents.
Thank you, Tobin. And next is Mike Smith.
So my concern on this would be the size of Georgian Bluffs. Is it feasible? There was a private service that ran from Wyerton to Owen Sound a few years ago. If the private sector couldn't make it work, I don't think it's something the Georgian Bluffs can take on their own without partners. We would have to look at partnering with a private sector, with the county, with the province, and possibly with Owen Sound.
Thank you, Mike Smith. All right, we will do one more question to each of our candidates, mayoral and council, from the advisory committee, and then we will go into our audience-submitted questions. So the final question from the advisory committee for our mayor candidates here tonight: do you believe there are significant potential economies of scale and tax savings to be found by greater collaboration between Georgian Bluffs and Owen Sound in the development and delivery of shared programs and initiatives? It'll be 60 seconds each, and Dwight Burley.
I believe that we should talk to the City of Owen Sound about a number of things. Taxes, yes. We in Georgian Bluffs are very fortunate to have a very low tax rate in the whole area. Working with the City of Owen Sound to try and offset their tax base is not going to help Georgian Bluffs. So I really feel that we need to have conversations, yes, but it's not going to help Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you, Dwight. Sue Carlton.
I think if we go into any talking with, especially the City of Owen Sound, about shared services, whether we're talking water to Potawatomi Village, that type of thing, we need to go into it with a win-win goal in mind so that there's something for Owen Sound and there's something for us, and that it's not going to cost us a prohibitive amount to gain that water, but that we can gain services from them. Other areas, I suppose, would be policing and fire department, where we could look at partnering with them there, but there's a lot of background studying would need to go into that to be sure that it's in the best interest of Georgian Bluffs as well as Owen Sound. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. And Scott Caddo.
Now this question, I brought a little bit of details up in my opening statement there, and basically, yes, it only makes sense for anyone to share services. That may kind of seem like old school here, but you remember in the old days when the farmers of the neighborhood used to get together and they all did their combining together, and it benefited everyone. Well, things have changed, and they've changed fast, and nobody seems to want to do that anymore. Well, in these times, we do need to start to share services and work together. Unfortunately, we do have some communication problems within Owen Sound and Georgian Bluffs through the past, and that's something that has to be rectified first before we can ever get into any type of sharing services. But yes, Sue is 100% correct on the win-win situation with both. You're going to have to give and you're going to have to take. You're going to have to sit at the table and you're going to have to get it done. You're not always going to get what you want, but remember that between everybody in the end, we are going to get what we need, not always what we want, but it's going to all it's going to do is help everyone.
And
Thank
that
you.
is time. Thank you, Scott. All right, for our council candidates, last question from the advisory committee. Should Georgian Bluffs continue to participate in its shared biogrid initiative with Chatsworth in the interest of responsible environmental stewardship, or is this something that needs to be eliminated? Brian Thompson.
So I was here on council when we engaged in the biodigester project. It was a really good environmental idea, and it was intended to stop the spreading of septage on farmland, and it provided other energy benefits, and it was intended to be a really great initiative that we were getting into on the front end of. It hasn't turned out that way. It's a great environmental idea, but the cost is just too great for small rural municipalities to shoulder. So we need to look at this and call it what it is. So what we need to do is we need to find private sector. If this is something the private sector can do, we should leave it to them. It's not something that we can afford to do alone. That's something I'm certain of. So I don't know the perfect answer right now and leave us all walking out the door happy. The thing I do know is it can't stay the way it is now. It's just too expensive for us to try and shoulder as two rural municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Next up, Colin Correa.
So the thing about letting him go first is he actually answered that question excellently. I mean, I wanted to say those things as well. Now, what I've got written down in my notes here is that there is a report that's supposed to outline a few options that was presented to council April 7th of 2022. It's the biogas feasibility study. And I believe we should take a really good look at this once we get on to council, whoever the 5 are that get on from council and the one mayor, and we really look at this and decide what it is that we're going to do based on the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Next up is Kathy Moore-Coburn.
So the decision to build this facility predates my time on council. My understanding was that the province was going to mandate use of that facility by farms, and the province never did follow through on that. So council of the day probably should not have spent the money on a facility based on a political idea, that those ideas come and go as soon as the next government comes into place. So unfortunately, we are saddled with the very expensive costs of operating. Not only that, it's expensive to maintain, and there are millions of dollars of upgrades that will be needed if we want the facility to take on things like source separated organics. We can't afford it. The difficulty is it's governed by a board, and most of us here don't sit, or most of us on council don't sit on that board, so it's sometimes hard for us to have the influence we would like to have on this particular matter.
And that's time. Thank you, Kathy. And next is Christopher Azevedo.
Yeah, so obviously the biodigester is a burden on the taxpayer right now, but why is that a burden on the taxpayer? Has it been underutilized? Is there opportunities to make it profitable? As a business owner, when I make an investment and that investment isn't working out well, I look for opportunities to make that profitable. I think we really need to look at that. There might be an opportunity, we need to incentivize bringing our organic waste over there. And have the biodigester being utilized, which in turn would have it running and make it profitable for the township. We need to look at that data and review it, and if it can't be achieved and we can't turn it into something profitable, I think we need to figure out a plan to minimize our losses and dispose of it responsibly.
Thank you, Christopher. Next up is Tobin Day.
In addition to all these wonderful things that the people preceding me have said about collecting data, doing our research, examining those 8 options that have been proposed, and choosing the most logical one, I think it's also important to pay attention to what the province of Ontario is doing in terms of waste legislation, and taking note about when the circular waste legislation comes through, which may make the biodigester more important and more to support for surrounding municipalities and counties. I don't think we'd be able to do it on our own, as previously stated. If we do decide to keep the biodigester, we really need to seek partnerships to make sure it's more than just us who are shouldering the financial burden.
Thank you, Tobin. And next is Mike Smith.
I think when this was brought in, it was done with the best of intentions. Quite simply, it's too costly. It's too costly to repair. It does need repairs, and it's not working for Georgian Bluffs. I'm not in favor of it, and I think it should go.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we will now move on to questions that were submitted by the audience here tonight. Again, audience, if you wanted to submit a question and didn't get a chance to, do raise your hand, and our volunteers will come around with pen and paper so you can write down your questions. First question, of course, will go to the mayoral candidates, the 3 on the stage. The question for you is, as mayor, how will you pull the new council together as a team so they work effectively for the taxpayers? And what will you do differently as mayor? Dwight Burley.
Thank you. The first thing I really feel our new council needs, we need a proper training at the beginning of the term so we can show each council member what their job is. They have to understand there's policies we need to follow, guidelines and so on, and they have to understand the mayor has no more power than any other council member. I'm one member of the council, same as everyone else. But we need to have the proper training to understand what is going on in the municipality so that we can do and have a good governance throughout our 4-year term. We have to respect each other, have great conversations, and we need to respect our staff. That's imperative that we do that.
Thank you, Dwight. Next up is Sue Carlton.
I think one of the things that needs to be done is when an issue or a complaint comes from a resident to either a staff member or one of our council members, is to have that person, when they respond back to staff, reply to all of council, and answers to the concern go back to all of council, so that each of us doesn't individually, so 7 people bombard staff members with the same issue. I think keeping those lines of communication open and having everybody trust each other, knowing that everyone's going to be kept informed, no one's going to be kept in the dark about any issues, I think that will help draw everybody together. I see the role of the mayor as being the leader that helps meld everybody together, that makes sure everybody knows that their opinion or idea is valued and will be listened to by everyone with respect.
Thank you, Sue. Scott Caddo.
I touched on this in my start too, and I also believe that very firmly, that I would be running things very, very differently compared to how it's been done in the past. I see the mayor's position more of a middleman between everyone involved. Communication, communication, and communication is everything that's important to this municipality. If the people aren't getting through to the councillors aren't educated and up to date with policies and the proper information in front of them, and all this information open and transparent to everyone involved, then we're not going to get very far with any progress within the township or any being able to work together as a council. Something I think that we've had along in the past, is the inability to act on things and sit down as a group and respect everyone's ideas and get the job done no matter how long it takes. I think we want to continue to push things off, but I think council really needs to get together, respect everyone's opinion, and come to agreements, whatever it takes. We're doing it for the people and the ratepayers of the township. Thank you.
And that's time. Thank you, Scott. All right, for our council candidates, submitted question: should Georgian Bluffs reach out to residents to invite them onto committees where their professional credentials could strengthen data gathering and decision making? Well, again, we'll start on the end with Ryan. This is the order that we drew the names in tonight, so this is the order we stick to. Ryan.
Okay. Well, I thought you were just really mad at me.
No. That's not high school.
I think it's a great question. We have a great municipality with a number of communities. That's the strength in our township, is the fabric of the communities and the people that live within it. I think we've not done a good job of drawing on that expertise in our communities. So we have lots of committees. The Climate Action Committee is a good example. I know that we need to use a climate lens in all of our decisions. I don't know the science. I am not a scientist. My science teachers aren't here. They would tell you I did well to pass. But I do know what it takes to get the data that we need, and we need the experts to do that. So I really think we need to draw on our community and pull those people out. People have lots to give, and they want to do that. So we should be taking advantage of that on our communities. Not just the climate action. We can do it for lots of our committees, in our planning, in our recreation. Whatever we can imagine is something that we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Colin Correa.
Could you please read the question again?
The question for council candidates: should Georgian Bluffs reach out to the residents to invite them onto committees where their professional credentials could strengthen data gathering and decision making?
Yeah, I'm going to stand for this one. I don't know why. There's no reason why. So I feel that gathering anybody for any sort of discussion is a very important part of being a part of our community. As a teacher, I always respect the opinions of the students and what they have to say. Sometimes they might even have a better idea than me. And that's what I respect about being in a community, is that sometimes I'm not going to have the answers. So any sort of committee or any sort of group that we're going to create, we want to have the experts. We want to have the people who know most about the issues be a part of it so that they can collaborate together, which that's at the end of the day, the name of the game is to collaborate so we can get things done to benefit us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Next up is Kathy Moore-Coburn.
Thank you. So the short answer is yes, absolutely. I feel like this is a no-brainer. Ryan has mentioned that our Climate Action Committee is full of knowledgeable, passionate, committed individuals that make that committee work incredibly easy, and I know that because I'm the chair. Another example of this kind of participation and engagement is our Committee of Adjustment. We have been using our council as the Committee of Adjustment, and I recently brought forward a motion that was passed to have the majority of that committee be community members, and the slate of qualified individuals that came forward for that committee was unbelievably outstanding. We need to do more of it. We want to engage our ratepayers. We could do it in the areas of heritage and culture as well. And I think we need to keep on inviting folks with the passion and expertise to be part of the decision making.
Thank you, Kathy. Next is Christopher Azevedo.
Hi, yeah, so the answer to that for me is yes. We need to call on the residents, the experts, and not just the experts. We need to get input from all of the community. In order for me to make a responsible, informed decision that's in the best interest of everybody, I need to hear your voices. And there's people who know more about certain things than I do. I need to hear from them. So yes, absolutely, we need to call on the community on any topic, on any change or anything that we're going to do as council. We need to hear back from the community and the experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Tobin Day.
Absolutely. I was just talking to my civics class about the value of volunteers and volunteering just earlier this week. Volunteers have voices in their communities. They feel that like they're contributing and they feel empowered, and those are wonderful feelings for residents to have in a municipality. I also would like to say it is important to keep paying the people who are professional consultants who we would normally pay or would sometimes pay for those jobs. We can't ask too much of our volunteers when there are experts who are dedicating their entire working profession to finding solutions to major problems. So a good balance of volunteers and paid consultants would probably be my preferred solution.
Thank you, Tobin. And Mike Smith.
So yes, of course, anytime you can draw on expertise, experience from people that have done it and been there, it's an invaluable asset to have. The other thing it does is it also keeps the community involved in what's going on in council. So yes, that needs to be done, and it needs to be done more.
Thank you, Mike. This next question is directed to all candidates on the stage. We'll start with answers from the mayoral candidates and then move on to council. So Ryan, technically you'll be answering fourth this time around. That counts as your Christmas present. The question is for all candidates. Georgian Bluffs has within its boundaries a World Biosphere Reserve, the Niagara Escarpment, protected in its use by provincial law. Do you see this as an asset or a liability for the area? If an asset, how would you oversee and promote it? If a liability, what would you do differently about it? Dwight Burley, you are up first.
I definitely think it is an asset for Georgian Bluffs. The environment, Niagara Escarpment protects valuable land. I really feel that Niagara Escarpment needs to have a re-look at to come up with better ways of looking at what they do. But I really think it's an asset, and I think it's important that we do keep Niagara Escarpment in place.
Thank you, Dwight. Sue Carlton.
Again, I agree. Any biosphere areas are an asset to the municipality. I think there's a level of tourism there that can be brought in, the ecotourism, that we don't really do a lot to attract. And I think working together with the biosphere, we could definitely attract more of those people. We have the waterfront trail for walking, hiking, biking. There's so many areas like that throughout the township that are an environmental, how can I say, environmentally friendly, so not motorized vehicles on them. And I think that's an area that we need to continue to expand on and work with the people at the Biosphere Committee. They know what they're doing better than we do in that area.
Thank you, Sue. Scott Caddo.
I'm just going to decline to answer. No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. I do agree. I do have some issues with the oversights that the NEC and these kind of things do have within our jurisdiction. No, we do need to protect these kind of areas. There's the tourism dollars, the environment action, all the things. You can't just have one without the other. Do I see definitely some oversight and non-use of common sense when it comes to regulation and their authority? Yes, and that's something that needs to be looked at. It is something. But when it comes down to that, it's very similar to the agricultural land, same type of problem. Do we continue to build or take away those 319 acres away a day of agricultural land in Ontario with no questions asked? This is the exact same thing when it comes to the Niagara Escarpment, but at the same time, we have to use common sense and common sense policies when we're going to use it within our jurisdiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next up, Ryan Thompson.
Thanks very much. I think one of our strongest attributes is our natural beauty here. I think it's what either kept people here or brought people here is the natural beauty in the landscape. I think it's a gem that we need to preserve. And I think that there isn't one answer for this. I think it's a big township, and we have lots of room to make sure that everybody gets something that they need. So we need to protect our green space. We need to protect the Niagara Escarpment. We need to make sure that there's room for people to enjoy the naturally beautiful places in a passive way, and we need to also create places for people who want to traverse with ATVs, traverse with horses. I think there's enough room for everybody to be happy here, and we just need to make sure that the activities that we support preserve the environment. So we're not doing damage in the areas that we need to environment. We need to route people into different places. So there's enough room for all the things.
Next time. Thank you, Ryan. Next up, Colin Correa.
I believe that it is an asset, and I'm going to prove it. Who here looked at the sunset yesterday and had a good look at that beautiful sunset we had yesterday? Raise your hand. Yeah, this is the teacher in me coming out. So I think that, to me, when I lived out west, I moved here because I got homesick, because I missed this area so much. I was in the Rocky Mountains. I was in probably one of the most beautiful places in Canada, yet what brought me back was the beautiful sights of Georgian Bluffs. So it's an asset. It's the reason why we're all here, as Ryan mentioned. I want to protect it. I want to basically have it remain the way that it is, and that I remember it as a child. Just beautiful. So I hope that you feel the same way as I do. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Colin. Next up, Kathy Moore-Colburn.
I too see these areas as an asset for all of the aforementioned reasons, for the tourism, for recreation. They also support much biodiversity, and they are effective in carbon capture. So there's all kinds of good reasons why we would want to protect them. The pandemic taught us a lot of lessons, but one thing that was loud and clear was that people took to the outdoors for their physical health, for their mental health, for their emotional health, and we want to make sure we preserve those lands.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up, Christopher Azevedo.
Yeah, the Niagara Escarpment is an important part of our community in this peninsula. I know my family has enjoyed it for 4 generations, and we definitely need to preserve it. Not just for ourselves, but for the economy that it brings in. Tourism supports our businesses, our small businesses, not just restaurants and shops, but everything else that comes along with that. So definitely in support of preserving that natural beauty that we have here.
Thank you, Christopher. Next up, Tobin Day.
This is a tricky question to answer in just 60 seconds. In terms of overseeing the Biosphere Reserve, we need to be aware of what our provincial partners and other environmental associations that are looking at, and be aware of the species inventory in those regions. It's very easy for a common species like wild leek to be over-harvested. Quebec actually has very few wild leeks now in a lot of areas, which is something that I know a lot of folks around here grew up eating and adding to their salads or stir fries in the spring. Invasive species are something we need to pay attention to as well, make sure we know where they are and try and get them out of there. Wise, balanced tourism, paying attention to the ways all users use trails and making sure that people have opportunities for different types of activities in different places of different types of ecological significance is important. And promoting tourism here is something I very firmly support, but also very firmly support promoting educated tourists who care about our land. We don't have to share tonight.
And Mike Smith.
So yes, having a biosphere here is an asset. I've worked firsthand being in a conservation club, the Bruce Peninsula Sportsman Association. We have worked on stream rehab with the Peninsula Biosphere. It is a tourist attraction as well, and I did touch on it firsthand in my opening statements that protecting green space is very important. Once it's gone, it's gone. So having a biosphere here and checks and balances is a good thing to have, and I support it.
Thank you, Mike. This next topic has come up a few times now on submitted questions, so I am again going to pose this question to everyone on the stage. We'll start with the mayoral candidates and then go on to the council candidates to answer it. The question has to do with consultants. Should Georgian Bluffs continue to hire expensive consultants to conduct studies that overlap with studies already performed by Grey County? Example, the trail study. We'll start with Dwight Burley.
Georgian Bluffs should work with Upper Tier, Grey County, any possible way we can. We do need consultants. We do not have the expertise to bring us the information to base the decision on. Grey County, in some areas, do have consultants that we can piggyback on. Should we work with Grey County to try and use that resource? Yes, we should. And I really feel that it's just an area where we need to both work together. Instead of hiring one consultant, we should hire one consultant instead of hiring two. I think we really should work together.
Thank you, Dwight. Next up is Sue Carlton.
Can I ask you to read the question again, please?
Yes, the question, should Georgian Bluffs continue to hire expensive consultants to conduct studies that overlap with studies already performed by Grey County? Example, the trail study.
Thank you. So using the example of the Recreation and Trails Master Plan that was developed for Georgian Bluffs, the county did their study based on their trails. We have our own trails, and that plan also went into our recreational facilities that we own that the county wouldn't explore. So while there were parts of that plan that we could work together with the county on, there were huge parts of it where we needed to have our own study done for our own facilities. I think there's a lot of other areas in climate action is one area where we could certainly work with them and are partnering with them, where Linda Swanson has come and spoke to our committee at the township frequently and has been a great help. So yes, we can work together. Where we can, yes, hire one consultant, but be aware of the fact that there's times when we need our own consultant.
Thank you, Sue. Scott Caddo.
Sue covered that pretty well, but one of the things I do want to comment on here is the fact that every time we turn around, I've seen this a number of times over the years with very, very simple planning operations and different things, not just the larger, when you're getting into large plans within the municipality itself. But yes, we are umbrellaed under the county with their official plan, and where we can use and not overlap services and use those type of things and consultants and put them in place for the things that we actually need them, I don't have a problem with. When you need consultants, you need professionals, put them in place. When we don't have the proper information or the scientific information that none of us here at the table can say we know. But when it comes down to common sense, everyday type of issues, we have made the system so complicated and so expensive that the people of the township can't afford to do it. And that's where I have a problem with consultants. But basically, when it comes down to master plans and master issues within the township, do we need a consultant for those kind of things? Yes, we do. For the smaller stuff, no. Let's get back to some common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We'll go to Ryan Thompson.
So I think that the way to answer that question is sometimes. I think that each situation comes with a different reality. So do we need to hire consultants all the time for the sake of hiring consultants? Absolutely not. Have there been times where we've hired a consultant and then looked back with 20/20 vision and thought we probably could have done that differently? For sure, and hopefully we're learning from those things. I think what we need to do is prioritize and choose consultants wisely. So in areas where we cannot gather the information or we need a consultant, we need to pick the right consultant and we need to be really clear about the parameters of what we're asking. So not a general come in and give us a bit of a study that's going to look like something they've done before. Be really clear about this is what we're looking for, these are our priorities, and this is why we're going to a consultant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Colin Correa.
Once again, I really like the answer of Ryan. To me, I don't understand quite if this was a specific issue that this question came from, like what it was. But I know for a fact, if Grey County hired Blair Kempers as your consultant, and then we went and paid more money and paid Blair Kempers again to consult us, that's a terrible idea. Because we could have just gotten it from Grey County, the report or whatever it was. So I don't think that we should hire the same consultant. However, who here has gone and gotten a second opinion before? Raise your hand, right? Medical or whatever it is. If you want to get a second opinion, then I think maybe that's where a consultant on our end would be. So that's why I agree, and also say, as Ryan has, sometimes it makes sense to have a consultant lead us into making a decision.
Thank you, Colin. Next up, Kathy Moore-Coburn.
So as Sue said, sometimes we hire consultants to give us information that's more specific to our municipality. We should never be duplicating consultants' work. So if it's available to us through the county or elsewhere, we should be using that data as long as it's current and meets our needs. We are a small municipality, we have a small staff, and we don't have all of the expertise on staff. So there are times when we do have to source that out to a consultant to give us the answers that we need to make good decisions. Have we hired consultants in the past that have been a bit of a waste? Yes, I think we have, and I remember a particular airport feasibility study that is a good example of that. I found that frustrating, and I think we need to stop and, as Ryan said, be very specific about what kind of data we need back on these particular studies.
That's time. Thank you, Kathy. And we'll go to Christopher Azevedo.
Yeah, so if we don't have the expertise in-house and we need to hire a consultant, that may need to happen from time to time. Do I agree with paying them to redo work and gather data that's already out there? No. We should be taking that data, and if there's from Grey County in this case for the Recreational Trails Master Plan, and then any gaps in that data, sure, hire the consultant just to deal with the gaps, right, and minimize the cost to the township.
Thank you, Christopher. Tobin Day.
For this one, it gets harder, as we've noted when we're at the end, to state new thoughts on things all the time. But it makes me think of a friend who left the military and went into teaching because he wanted to get away from the bureaucracy. And anyone who works in education knows there's a lot of bureaucracy in education, and there's bureaucracy in municipalities as well. And streamlining bureaucracy is really important. It takes a human touch to figure out how to work through the system. I can't claim to be an expert on that without having sat on council yet, but that's something I'd be very interested in doing. And I've already been learning a lot about what the previous council has done, and really hope that the past council and whichever incumbents are elected will help train the new staff so that any new members of the council will know what has happened in the past and that information does not get lost, to save any money on repetitive consultants.
Thank you, Tobin. Mike Smith.
So I think this goes hand in hand with having a good working relationship with your neighbors and the different levels of government, county, provincial, federal. If there's a study already done and it's feasible for us to use and it fits what we need, then yes, I'm all for that. There are also going to be situations where they don't check all the boxes and we're going to have those come in and do them on their own. So short answer, yes, when we can use them, but that's not going to work all the time.
Thank you, Mike. This next question submitted from the audience is again directed at all of our candidates on the stage tonight. We'll start with mayoral candidates and then move to council. What is your position on the collection and disposal of residential compost waste? Dwight Burley, we'll start with you.
If you're asking me if we should collect it, yes, we should. We in Georgian Bluffs do have compost bins and so on where residents can pick them up and do their own. I really feel that we all talk about the biodigester and so on. There's something that we can all work with to help improve waste and stuff like that going to the biodigester. And I really feel there's plenty of things we can do with it, but we need to work at it together.
Thank you, Dwight. Sue Carlton.
So if we're talking about a green bin program, I think we'd first want to do a study to find out how many people would actually use that. How many people have sufficient property to use one of those compost bins that you can pick up from the township for $50. There's also green cones now that you can, they're $140, and they will take animal waste, fats and grease and all of that. So I think a green bin program in Georgian Bluffs might not be totally feasible. I'd want to see the dollar figures on that one first.
Thank you, Sue. Scott Caddo.
When it comes to this kind of a thing within Georgian Bluffs, we have to look at the sheer area of our township. and the infrastructure cost and the actual green impact we'd be putting into if we put something like this into place. When you get into a green style box system and we're going to have a pickup, look at the sheer area of Georgian Bluffs. Are we actually making a difference? Is this the type of thing where each individual within the township can make their difference in their backyard? And for those who can't, we have a smaller depot that the township controls that they can take their stuff to. But I think that's kind of that's a double-edged sword. You think you're making a difference, but you're actually making it worse. I don't think the financial imprint, as Sue said, I'm not sure whether we want to hire a consultant to have a look at this and spend the money, but I think that's the type of thing where we're into this climate action issue, and it's going to come up no matter what we do. And I don't think we necessarily want to start throwing money or ideas at things just to say that we're making a difference when we're actually not.
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Ryan Thompson.
I may be underthinking this, but it seems like a simpler problem for me. I don't think we need a study. I think we need to be really thoughtful about what exists in our community. So I think there are people like me who can easily deal with compost on my own property and actually quite like it. I think there are people who can capitalize on our bin program and use that. I think we also have people who can't do either of those things, that'll experience bear problems or just not be able to do that. So I think we need to come up with a solution for those people, and I think we can do that without employing a big consultant. Like, that just seems to me like something that we can gather enough information that we can make a decision on our own. It's pretty simple. We can find out what a green bin program is. You just call a contractor and they're going to tell you this is the price. And if it's a segmented area, we'll still know the price. I think we can gather enough information on our own to find the right path here.
Thank you, Ryan. Colin Correa.
I like this idea. I like the thought of having a green bin program. We kind of already have one at the school, the high school I work at. It's a bin in the cafeteria, and when students are done with whatever leftover food they have, they scrape it into this bin. And all of that food goes to the caretaker's chickens. And I feel like that could be a lot of people's stories in our township. And if that's the case, then we don't really need a green bin program because we kind of already are doing it ourselves at home. However, there are some of us who don't have that, and then what do we do for them? So maybe that's something where it's a hybrid model where if you want to subscribe to the service, you can, and here's what it's going to cost. Otherwise, I'm kind of, at this moment, left without any more ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Next is Kathy Moore-Coburn.
I'm all for reducing anything that goes to the landfill sites as much as possible. We use a green bin, a compost bin at our place, and we have one of the new green cones as well, and they work great. We have just under 3 acres. Not everyone has the space or is in a suitable area to compost on their own. I think I agree with the previous speaker that this is something that we could get some costing for those areas that are more residential and more dense in terms of the population, and implement some of those costs on a user pay type of program. It's difficult because we have such a diverse and big municipality, so those are some possibilities, I think.
Thank you, Kathy. Christopher Azevedo.
So the last time our long-term waste plan was reviewed in 2010, and I think this is a great opportunity to review that plan and see if we can create an opportunity to divert some of our organic waste where it makes sense. Obviously, we're a large township, and there's a lot of areas that wouldn't benefit from this program and the cost wouldn't make sense. But there are smaller communities that are more dense, and we should look at the cost of that and see if there's an opportunity to divert that organic waste, perhaps to our biodigester, which could benefit from that. And maybe there's an opportunity there to make our biodigester more profitable. We can work with other communities like Owen Sound who could benefit from that program, and they could maybe pay us to take that organic waste to the biodigester. So I think there are opportunities to look at. We'd have to look at that in more detail and look at the costs and see if we can implement that.
Thank you, Christopher. Tobin Day.
As a student in Toronto, I lived through the initiation of the green bin program in the city, and it had its moments, especially with some raccoons, but there's a distinction that I would like to see when we're talking about collecting compost. If we're just collecting vegetable matter that a lot, not all, but many people can compost at home already, then it may not be financially viable to collect that. But if we can expand that program to collecting bones and diapers and all the things that the more urban green bins can collect, then that would divert a lot of waste from our landfills. And as some previous candidates said, there might be ways that we could tie the biodigester into that and perhaps turn something around. That is a topic that I would need to research in much more detail and learn more about, but I'd be interested in exploring. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobin. Mike Smith.
Just the vastness of the municipality makes this one tough. We can look at it. Green bins, I think, are a good idea. I just don't know if they're going to be economically feasible for Georgian Bluffs. It's something we can look at moving forward, but I don't think it will work.
Thank you, Mike. This next question stays on the topic of the environment and is posed to all candidates on the stage. Again, we'll start mayoral and move to council candidates. The question, 20% of greenhouse gas emissions come from the energy used in buildings. What do you think should be done to hasten changes in local building codes to make sure that new construction has zero emissions? Dwight Burley, we'll start with you, sir.
There's plenty of areas in the building codes we can improve on. Insulation is one. Different roofing products we're putting on our roofs and so on. There's plenty of avenues there where we can look at to change this footprint, the relieving of carbon and so on. And I really feel that, yes, there's plenty of opportunity. In fact, the building code has started changing in certain areas right now to help with the environment.
Thank you, Dwight. Sue Carlton.
I agree. I think there are areas within the building code where we can improve things. One example that came up at a Climate Action Committee meeting was having the building code for all new builds have a rough-in for electric vehicles, not the actual full plug-in that you need, but the rough-in there, so that the next person buying that property just has to finish that off and doesn't have to build right from scratch. So things like that can be built into our building code at the township level. It's a hard one because part of what you're up against is developers who are going to want to build that to make money. That's what they're in the business of doing. So how do you force the purchasers to pay the extra, the developer to maybe take a loss? There's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts in that question, I think, that need to be explored further.
Thank you, Sue. Scott Caddo.
This is something that actually I've been dealing with all my life in the construction business, and I could stand here for the next hour and a half and list off things that we could be doing in every day in our construction within our municipality here alone. Everything from the way we're building to how we build, to the products we use. All this stuff is out there in front of us for us to be using here every day. One of the things I think in the township here is we do got to start looking at how I'll call it urban sprawl, how we develop, incentives to build differently with the developers. Sometimes the smaller homes, the seniors' homes, something smaller is more efficient to operate. Just simple. Very simple case there. But there's a million things that the township could put incentives to developers and builders within the programs to get people to build more efficiently. And those kind of things are everyday things that are going to make a huge difference. And you wouldn't even know you're doing it. But like I said, there's a million, that's a very difficult topic. And you could go on with that for hours and what you can do with it, but it's right in front of us for us to do.
And that is time.
Thank you,
Scott. And we'll go to Ryan Thompson.
So I've already told you before, I'm not a scientist. And I'm thrilled to hear there are a million things to do because that gives me hope. I think that as a councillor, what you're looking for is someone who's a critical thinker. And I think what we need to do is apply a climate lens to all of our thinking. So that includes our building, that includes our bylaws, it includes everything that we do. So I don't know the answer to all this, but I'm going to rely on the experts who do to tell me. I think a fallacy that we sometimes worry about is we say we want to build affordable housing, and we also want to make sure that on the other hand, we have all of these things in our buildings so that it's going to drive the cost up. So I think what we have to be careful is making sure that all the decisions we're making about the climate are our best bang for the buck. So again, if you're looking for me for the scientific answer, I'm going to always leave you disappointed. What I'm going to do is rely on our experts and the data to get the information to us.
That is time. Thank you, Ryan. Colin Correa.
I like this question because it involves technology, and technology is always advancing. I have an old vehicle with a new engine in it, and it gets better fuel mileage because it has the newer, more modern engine with fuel injection. And as an automotive service technician, that was something I wanted to do because I like the style of the old car, but I like the new fuel injection technology in it so that I can save money and drive a really cool looking car. So the same way that this building that we're in right now, you can save money by replacing these like fluorescent lights with LED lights. LEDs use less electricity, and we're saving money, and it's just overall better for the environment. Furnaces, they can be upgraded to be more efficient. So if there's a mid-efficiency furnace, you can upgrade it to a high-efficiency furnace and save some money there, and that's better for the environment. Ideas like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Kathy Moore-Coburn.
Thank you. I'm not sure I have too much more to add to this other than to say that we can link people who are building new buildings and new structures with the available incentives and grants that are being offered provincially and federally. I think we can do a better job of educating folks on that. And I think we can engage developers with incentives as well to keep these types of things in mind when they propose new developments within Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you, Kathy. Christopher Azevedo.
So building codes are established at a higher level of government than we are here. It's our responsibility to enforce those building codes. Now, that being said, I think in order to help people realize there's opportunities to be more efficient, we need to help educate them on the grants available from the province and from the federal government. We need to incentivize them on investing in that and help them understand that maybe a little bit higher cost up front today might save them in the long run and benefit the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Tobin Day.
I feel like all my points were taken one by one down that line. Buildings are, as previously stated in the question, a big producer of greenhouse gases. I feel like the grants and incentives are a really important piece of this because people are afraid, quite logically, of the short-term costs of more green buildings. And it is important to remember that there are long-term savings if families and people can afford to do things in a more climate-friendly way from the beginning. Co-housing is another area that we could look at in terms of low-income housing that is also climate-friendly. There are folks on the other side of Owen Sound, still in Owen Sound, working on the Glassworks project, where they're looking at building an environmentally friendly, socially friendly, responsible housing project, and that's something that we can learn from. Thank you.
Thank you, Tobin. Mike Smith.
So what we can do is look at smaller homes. Smaller homes take less energy to heat, less materials build, save the environment that way. We can also look at incentivizing retrofits. Older homes are far less efficient than the newer ones. Newer building codes are up to date. So we can incentivize those to retrofit the older homes that are worse would be a big step forward too.
Thank you, Mike. All right, candidates, we have about probably time for 2 more questions before we get to closing statements tonight. This is another submitted question. Apologies, this was written in. Are you in support of extending the East Linton water system to supply water to Potawatomi Village? If you are, what do you see as the next step? We'll pose this one again to all candidates on the stage, and we'll start with Dwight Burley.
At this time, I do not feel that the Eastland water system is feasible to extend it over to Potawatomi Village. I really feel we have a better option to sit down with the City of Owen Sound, and work out an option to hook onto the city water system. Maybe that system can be made more attractive for the city of Owen Sound if we use hook on water and sewer for that particular Potawatomi village. We went down that road. We have an EA study done for that Potawatomi, or for the extension of the Eastern water system. It's just not feasible to do it in the way that it's proposed right now. And I really don't feel that a lot of the area up going through there down Summer Street, I do not think the ratepayers want to have to pay that cost.
Thank you, Dwight. Sue Carlton.
So I know there are some residents in areas like Anderson Street on the west side that would love to get hooked onto a water system. And we would need more people like those on 30th Street, Summer Street, Park Street, all along there to make it feasible to bring that East Linton system right through to Potawatomi. So the other option is talks with the city to see if we can get water from Owen Sound out to Potawatomi, because they definitely need better quality water at a better price than what they're paying now. It's a hard one because there's so many different sides to it. To just say we're going to take from East Linton straight to Potawatomi without hooking anybody else on, no, I don't think that's feasible. We have to look at all the options there.
Thank you, Sue. Scott Caddo.
Okay, I'd like to just a little bit of clarification on this for anybody who doesn't understand how the water systems and rates work within the township. Very similar to natural gas, things like that, when they're going to expand into an area outside of where they are. Infrastructure costs money. And the township is not allowed to put that cost on the outside ratepayers throughout the township. This is a payer-per-use system. So when they talk about extending the East Linton system to supply Potawatomi, makes absolutely no sense. It's not possible, it's not feasible, it's too costly per household. It'll never work. We have one option only, and that is to make some type of a deal with Owen Sound. Back to the communication problem with Owen Sound, but we need to be there. We don't want to get in a situation here where we have problems or someone gets sick. This has been going on for 20 plus years. This needs to be solved. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Ryan Thompson.
I'm going to need more than a minute, so maybe we won't look at you for a little bit. But it has been a 20-year problem. Unfortunately, it's easy to say it's a solution that's easy. We just negotiate and it goes away. That's not the answer. We could fill this room with people who would say extending the East Linton water system would be great for them. We'd also fill the room with people that would say, I don't need it, I've got my own water. What we have is a water problem, and we have to find a solution. We need to continue with talks with our partners. They've been unsuccessful in the past. We need to keep working on those relationships. At the same time, we have to be honest about our water systems. We have several different water systems, and people are experiencing have a different experience in those. This is a big problem for us to tackle, and we really have to dig into it, gather all the data, and come up with a solution.
Thank you, Ryan. Colin Correa.
It just occurred to me, because this question was asked in Kemble, that they don't have good water. What happens if there's a fire? From a firefighter perspective, this is not good. You need water for a fire, obviously, to put out a fire. I was at the Hepworth Legion fire, and that is one of the examples of not having enough water. So there was a report presented to council in October of 2018 for recommendations for them to take action on, and it was extend East Linton or make a deal with Owen Sound. We need to do something. 20 years, or since 2004, this has been going on. It's been too long. We need to have water. Everyone should have water.
Thank you, Colin. Kathy Moore-Coburn.
I think we all agree that it's a problem. It's the fix to the problem that's eluded, I think, councils in the past and over the past 4 years as well. I agree. I've heard from ratepayers up in the Brook area who would love that water extension. Other ones absolutely do not want that forced upon them. So we need to be cognizant of that. I would like to see us start with negotiations with extending the Owen Sound water services up to the Potawatomi area. But we have some rebuilding of bridges to do where the city of Owen Sound is concerned, and I think we need to start with that in mind.
Thank you, Kathy. Christopher Azevedo.
So I don't think we can sit here and say that we need to gather the data. We've had 20 years to gather that data. We have the data. Out of that data, we've discovered there's really only two solutions: the East Linton extension or work with the City of Owen Sound. And out of that, the reality is working with the City of Owen Sound is the only cost-effective solution. So what we really need to do is work with our neighbors, work together collaboratively, and find a solution for this area of our township.
Thank you, Christopher. Tobin Day.
Many of these questions have had elements of working well with our neighboring municipalities, and listening to some more experienced voices, it sounds as though the Owen Sound water source is one of the most viable, if not the most viable option for this part of our municipality for water sources. So in my mind, it feels like a wonderful time to work on repairing whatever is not right with our relationship with Owen Sound, and working with the new council to collaborate about transportation and water and other issues where we might be able to share services.
Thank you, Tobin. Mike Smith.
So going on for 20 years, I'm sure there's been many studies. I have not seen any of them, so I'm not going to comment on what they are and what is feasible either way. But it does come back to a point I touched on earlier, where if you don't have good relationships with the other levels of government and your neighbors, this will not get done. So we either need to sit down and get this done, or look at doing something on our own.
Thank you, Mike. And we have one more question for all candidates here tonight. This one definitely changes gears from the environmental questions we've had. Final question of the evening, starting with the mayoral candidates and then council candidates, is: should Georgian Bluffs reconsider its opposition to retail cannabis outlets? We'll start with Dwight Burley.
My answer to that is no. I really feel that Georgian Bluffs Council at this time have elected not to have cannabis stores in our municipality, and I still continue to agree with that. It's just, I do not think it's necessary.
Thank you, Dwight. Sue Carlton.
I disagreed with council when we made that decision. I felt that we were limiting any shop owners within our own municipality and trying to tell them what they could and could not do. I'm not opposed to it when it's run properly, and I think the legislation is there in place that ensures that those businesses have a very set of rules that they have to follow. So I would support allowing that in the municipality again.
Thank you, Sue. Scott Caddo.
I remember this actually 4 years ago, and we still basically are sitting here asking the same questions, and there seems to be a lot of things here tonight. I'm going to agree with Sue on this. There's things that are going to come down that you just cannot change. Change is change. When things are run properly, I have no problem with businesses and people within the municipality to make a living, and this kind of coexists with the short-term rental issue, which I'm going to touch on quickly while I got the time. I didn't have a lot of real good opinion from what I was hearing from people out there, but then I did have a couple of people I talked to in the last couple of days that sent me information on it. And when those kind of businesses are run properly by the responsible business owners within the township, they run very well. But unless we're going to get out in front of these things, put our regulations and our restrictions in place, we'll be back here 4 years talking about the exact same thing. But as for that issue there, things will change, and you must move into the future with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Brian Thompson.
I generally think discouraging business is a bad idea. I think we know a lot more about the cannabis industry now than we did 4 years ago, and certainly more then than 4 years before that. I think it's a little more mainstream. I think that more people have become knowledgeable about the benefits that might exist and actually utilize it. So I agree with my colleagues that say it's something that we need to open our mind to from a business standpoint and from an accessibility standpoint for some of the people in our community that use the products for their own health. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Colin Correa.
This is an interesting question because on one hand, some communities don't want to see these stores go up in their neighborhood. On another hand, we don't want to discourage business. And where I feel like I fall on that is, hey, it's been 4 years. We started off not knowing what it would look like. We were maybe a little scared. It was maybe like driving a manual car. At first, you're, stalling it, and you're trying to, shift it in a second and get it going. But now we know. Now we're comfortable with it. It's okay. Who's going to go into that store is going to go in. They're going to get what they need. They're going to come out, and it's okay. It's not like there's any sort of like negative, like kind of solicitation or any sort of weird stuff that's going on outside the stores. Okay, it's all right. So I think that we can maybe reconsider business opportunities in the correct place, in the correct location for these stores. Thanks.
Thank you, Colin. Kathy Moore-Coburn.
When we voted this down early in the last term of council, and I voted against allowing these shops to open up, my reason for doing so was because I didn't want Georgian Bluffs to be an early adopter. We knew we could opt in after the fact, but once you opted in the beginning, then there was no going back. So I guess that makes me a very cautious person, and I'll own that. But I think now that we've seen what's happened in our neighboring municipalities, I would be very much open to exploring the possibility of allowing these businesses within our borders. I think we just need to look to best practice in terms of what controls the nuisances and the problems that may be associated with some of them, and we can put effective bylaws in place to make sure that the businesses are doing right by our municipality.
That's time. Thank you, Kathy. Christopher Azevedo.
So I'm in support of businesses, small businesses. I'm in support of growing opportunities. I think we didn't adopt in right away, and that's fine. That decision was made by the previous council. I think there's enough data out there now from other municipalities who have opted in that we could review this. But I think it's important to hear from the residents of the community to understand if they do have any issues with opting in, what they are, to make sure that we respect everyone. But I am in support of growing business in our community.
Thank you, Christopher. Tobin Day.
We might be able to use somebody else's consultation dollars on this one. If I'm remembering the news correctly, I believe the federal government is looking into the impacts of these new businesses on our youth and children. And as long as we're making sure we're following best practices, making sure packaging is making sure kids don't misidentify things. And I work with a lot of teenagers who think that there are no impacts on young brains, but there's a lot of research that shows teen brains are different than adult brains in terms of how they react to marijuana. So we really need to make sure the youth are protected. But again, as many people have stated, businesses should have the opportunity to grow and thrive in Georgian Bluffs. And once we've checked out what the consultants are saying, then I think there shouldn't be too many barriers in the way of having marijuana stores.
Thank you, Tobin. Mike Smith.
So there is a right time and a right place for everything. Other municipalities have done this. Wyerton has 2 of them. They've turned out very well. I'm in favor of them as long as they're in a safe place and the rules are being followed.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we will now move on to the closing statements portion of the evening. Each candidate will get 90 seconds for their closing statement. I do want to say a big thank you to all of you for being so respectful and answering all the questions here tonight, questions from the advocacy committee, and questions from our audience. It is much appreciated. We will do our closing statements in the order that we were all introduced tonight, which will be the mayoral candidates first, and then the council candidates. So first, to start with their closing statement, is Dwight Burley. You have 90 seconds, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to start off by thanking the Chamber for putting this on. Much appreciate it. And I would like to send out a special thank you to all the candidates to put their name forward to show Georgian Bluffs have a great bunch of people to choose from. The last 4 years in Georgian Bluffs has been a very challenging situation, losing 5 CAOs, 3 directors of operations, and then throw COVID in there too. But council, at the time, we made it through. Georgian Bluffs kept going ahead, as we usually do. We're very fortunate to hire a new CEO. She is starting to bring morale back between staff, council, and everybody, and she's moving the municipality forward. And I got to say thank you very much for the council, existing council that's in place. Thank you. It was a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, Dwight. Next up, Sue Carlton.
Thank you. So in this previous term of council, council had the foresight with the biodigester to have a report that staff at both Georgian Bluffs and Township of Chatsworth are working on jointly. That report will come back to the new council at the beginning of the term so that they can act on it. And the purpose in having it brought back in that timing was so that council had time to react to it. That's only one of the challenges that are going to face the new council. Recreation and Trails Master Plan needs to be implemented and expanded upon. I think there's a lot of things in that plan that were missed by the consultants, that they didn't listen to our residents. I think that's another key area for the new council is listen to the residents, get the residents involved, and respect their thoughts and their decisions and ideas that they bring forward. I see Georgian Bluffs as a wonderful place to live. I think all of our little communities are what make it such a great place to live. And I trust that everyone will make the right decision for the municipality in this coming election. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thanks to the Chamber for putting this on.
Thank you, Sue. Scott Caddo.
Okay, I'll keep this brief. You guys have had enough information jammed at you for one night here. I think one of the most important things that any of us can get out of this tonight is you sitting back, we're answering your questions. But what are your thoughts? And that's 90% of the problem within the township and moving forward in Georgian Bluffs. This is your community, this is your municipality, and it is the council's responsibility, and they need to do better on listening to your wants and your needs. I look forward to putting real leadership and moving this township back into the future, moving the businesses and opportunities that are out there for everybody. I'm actually, even though we sounded to talk about all these problems we have here tonight, I'm actually extremely enthusiastic about where we could be in 4 years. The opportunities are out there. We just need to work together, cooperate, and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Next up, Ryan Thompson.
Thanks very much. Thank you to all of you for coming. This is great. I really enjoy these. It's a good opportunity to get in front of people and have good conversation. And I'm thrilled that you're here to listen to us and give us a chance for you to get to know us. I want to thank the Chamber for doing this. I hate your system, but it worked out okay. That's okay. I love being on the hot seat, and the 90 seconds, not letting us know about the closing statement ahead of time is also fun to try and navigate. So that's cool. Why should you elect me? I think what some of you may or may not know is I'm a director in a child protection agency, and what my role is to do is to build teams and to inspire people towards a vision. And I think when you're looking at a council, what you are looking for and what you want to see is a critical thinker and someone who understands that we need to get all perspectives before we make a decision, and that includes staff, ratepayers, our own research, and our dialogue between us. We don't need to like each other. We don't need to spend time together. We don't need to be best friends, but we do need to respect each other in the position that we have. We need to engage in healthy conflict, because if we don't have healthy conflict, we don't get all the perspectives. And healthy conflict is respect, but still leaning into issues. So you need people that are going to do that and make those decisions, because as councillors, we influence the staff that execute our vision. And that's our responsibility, is to advocate for you.
And it's time. Thank you, Ryan. We'll go next to Colin Correa.
Yeah. I just want to thank everybody who's here and came out tonight. You might have had better things to do than, listen to me talk about these things. But I'm really happy that you did, because this is what democracy is. And I hope that you are more informed on who you're going to vote for when the time comes for you to do so. I enjoy everything that I'm doing, serving the community in the two ways that I told you earlier, as a teacher at St. Mary's High School and being on a volunteer fire service. I will quite literally wake up in the middle of the night at 4 a.m. to help someone in need. And to me, this is a position that I feel like I do a great job at. All you have to do is give me a call, email me, and we can talk about what it is that your concerns are, and you can rest assured that it will be heard in a council meeting or discussed at some level with staff. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you to the Chamber, and thank you for my colleagues who have put their name on the ballot and been as brave as this has been for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Collins. Next up, Kathy Moore-Coburn.
Like Ryan, I'm going to wing it because this is the first. I also have heard that we have closing statements, so here goes. When I was running for election 4 years ago, I was told that the worst part of the job is having to engage with the ratepayers. The phone calls, the complaints, the anger. Turns out for me that was the best part of the job. I did set somewhat of an unrealistic goal for myself for this past term of council in responding to ratepayers' questions, concerns, comments within 24 hours. I believe I have done that 100% of the time. It's darn near killed me. I'm not going to make that promise for this next term if re-elected, but you can be sure you will always hear back from me. It may not be the answer that you want to hear, but I will help you find the answers that you need, and I will continue to be responsive. We don't just need people at this table who attend meetings. We need people at the table who have read the 300-page agenda package, who have done the background research, who have asked the questions and come to the council and committee meetings prepared. If they're not, we don't have meaningful debate, and without that meaningful debate, we don't make good decisions. So I hope you will vote for people who have the time and the commitment, who are willing to roll up their sleeves and dig in, and I hope to be one of those people. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up, Christopher Azevedo.
So I'd just like to start by thanking you for your time, and thank you to the Chamber for providing us with this opportunity to speak to all of you. As I mentioned previously, we've been in this township for 4 generations, and we have 4 young kids. I'd like to see that continue. I truly believe that we can grow this township responsibly in a way that respects our future generations, respects our taxpayers, provides the services that we need for everybody who currently reside here. I'm a homeowner and business owner here in Georgian Bluffs. I pay taxes to this township, whether it's at home or business or at work. I have the experience to prioritize, review, and manage large budgets and ensure services are maintained, efficiencies are found, and accountability to the ratepayers. So I'd like to ask for your vote for councillor for the next 4 years. And if you give me this opportunity, honestly, I will show you what it means to properly represent you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Next up, Tobin Day.
Sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit there. I just want to talk broadly about 3 things that have been true for my entire life. I love learning. I have taught many subjects in high schools, and I can't think of one that I haven't enjoyed teaching, because it always involves me learning something new, even if it's a subject I've taught many times before. So even during this process, whatever happens, I'm very glad that I ran for council, and I've learned more about the issues that are important to the people in Georgian Bluffs. I'm so much more aware of how change is made in a municipality, and I look forward, if I have that possibility, of learning even more and contributing what I am able to do. I've also been very adaptable for my entire life. We moved a lot. We moved a lot in Grey Bruce, and I think I had 30 addresses before I was, I had 15 addresses before I was 30. So adaptability is something I have grown up with. I've lived, studied, and worked on 3 different continents. And the final thing is I'm really committed to what I do. I am very committed to to my job as a teacher, and I will continue to be so should I become elected. I will also only work 2/3 if I become a counselor, so that I'm able to fully commit to the job, the part-time job of being a municipal counselor. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you, thank you, Tobin. And finally, we'll go to Mike Smith.
So yes, this is the first time we knew about a closing comment. So I'll wing it like some of the rest of them did. Communication. Council doesn't work without communication. And that's not just between members of council, that's with you, the public. So as a council, we need to do better and get back to talking to you, listening to you, and doing what's best. Being in sales all my life, communication is what I do. I can negotiate, I can get along with people, and that's what I'll bring to council to get stuff done.
Thank you, Mike Smith. Once again, there are two councillors that are not currently on the stage. One you did get to see at the beginning of the night. Isaac Scholdice was here to make his opening statement. He had to leave us early, and Rick Winters was unable to be here tonight. I read an opening statement on his behalf earlier. For the candidates that are here tonight, for our audience members that are here, if you do want to ask them questions after the meeting, they are here. By the looks of things, all of them have promotional materials and information. So if there's any questions that you didn't get to hear an answer to during the meeting tonight, do take advantage of the time now and ask them after the meeting. For those watching at home as well that are hoping to hear more from these people up here on stage tonight, there will be another Meet the All Candidates meeting happening October 12th in Shallow Lake. So put that event on your calendar. Also put on your calendar Election Day, October 24th. Bring people to vote. So many showed up tonight. We thank you so much for being here. It shows that you care about the issues, and do bring a lot of folks with you on October 24th to also cast your votes here in Georgian Bluffs. Do want to say a few thank yous before we wrap things up tonight. A big thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, to Tiffany, Marg, and Natalie for being here tonight, for all the volunteers that made this event possible tonight. Thank you very much. Also thanks to Gary Byers, who did all the setup of all the audio and everything, all the microphones. Thank you, Gary. To Daryl and the team at Rogers TV, all the volunteers that bring you so much great community television, like events like this. Thank you very much, because these events matter. If you do want to get more information about your candidates that are running in this election, georgianbluffs.ca is the municipal website for more information. We are going to wrap things up. My name is JC Coots from Bayshore Broadcasting, afternoon host at Mix 106.5 and 97.9 The Bruce. It's been a pleasure to be here tonight. Thank you very much, and don't forget to vote October 24th. Cheers. And we should be clear on TV cameras, so you can now go.
Closed captioning is brought to you in part by Raven Reads. Unbox Indigenous voices. Subscribe today at ravenreads.org.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line. Email us or connect with us on social media.
Dave Carr, sitting in for David Sherman on Politically Speaking. Our next event is a mayoralty debate among the 3 candidates for the mayor of the municipality of Georgian Bluffs. I'll have questions on the next Politically Speaking on Rogers TV.